I'm going to tell you the pros and cons about lifting your Ford Maverick. That's going to include my personal opinion when I lived in my Ford Maverick and what people have said online on the internet about lifting theirs.
And don't forget to subscribe, hit that like, yeah, whatever.
Want more feedback, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to talk crap about how ugly Nick's face is? Please do that.
Or Jared's.
So depending how you lift your Ford Maverick, it starts off with getting a kit. And that kit could range anywhere from a couple $100 onwards up to a couple $1,000, depending on who you go with when you're lifting your Ford Maverick. Now, you might be wondering to yourself that, is this really kit dependent or is it really based off of the truck? Well, we'll get to the pros and cons about that later. When Jared and I lifted the Ford Maverick, we actually had a lift, we had access to a shop, and this allowed us to actually do the lift a lot more smoothly than, say, if I did it here back home in my own garage. Though with that being said, most of these kits you could actually do at home if you have enough tools and if you are comfortable taking apart your suspension while being on your back and being safe about it. So I did the research and reading up on the forums, I went, I believe, with 31-inch BF Goodrich tires. Now, I also didn't want to use the stock Maverick wheels. I've actually said on this channel before, there is nothing wrong with Judaism, but at the same time that the Ford Maverick wheels, especially on the lariats, look like the Judea Star. That was not my design choice, that was Ford's. But with that being said, I decided to go with 5152s or 5215s. I can't think of the name of them right now. I went with a copper color looking wheel, and with that velocity blue, it actually really set the truck off really nice. Now, it took us, honestly, even with the lift, it took us all day because you had to do a couple modifications here or there. The instructions, especially this lift kit being from Super Lift, which was, I believe, I picked it up for $250. This kit basically had you do some modifications to your Ford Maverick. Nothing too big, just drill a couple holes right in the plastic retainers, I think, of the McPherson strut satin, but everything was pretty much straightforward. You removed a component, you added their components, right? And this gave you anywhere from about a 2 to 2.5 inch lift. Now, when it came to the tires, they were pretty big. When I did my research, some of the forums were actually saying that you were able to put up to 32s or even 33 inches, which I didn't want to do so much modifications, and I thought I could get away with only doing 31 inches. Now, the reason why this video never came out when I had the Ford Maverick was essentially that I didn't really finish the video. And what I mean by that is we were just so focused on not staying all night in the shop that we decided to basically focus on the truck and not so much on the video. The video just abruptly ended, and that's why this video never came out. It was supposed to be actually a whole tutorial video on how to lift your Ford Maverick. You put this on, it drops the end links, you know?
Oh!
Yeah. It just kind of fell through when I was editing it and realized that there was really no ending. And it was unfortunate because it was some good content that we got at the very beginning.
Open up the hood, yada yada. Let's go.
Yada yada! That was more epic in my head.
Now, towards the end of the video that I don't think we really captured was that we actually had to start grinding away at pinch welds. This was actually one of the biggest things that took time away from the actual video. My research was saying like, oh, it's just slight grinding, but instead we had to do a lot of grinding for 31-inch tires. Once everything was done, we got everything adjusted and settled and went back and forth on it. The truck actually looked really good. I honestly had a lot of people come up to me, whether it be Maverick owners or just random people that were just saying that the truck looked great. Posted a couple pictures out on it on Reddit, and a lot of people loved it too. Drove it for about 15,000 miles, had no issues with it whatsoever. The truck looked awesome, it was great, and the next thing you know, I sold it. I sold the truck. And the reason for that being was, you know, you could bag on me on this, but so, you know, my philosophy is if I'm going to be paying X amount of dollars for a monthly payment on a truck, yes, I know, I get it, the Maverick's a cheaper truck, but for me, I didn't want my daily to also be my work truck, if that makes sense. If I wanted to throw something in the back of the Maverick and not worry about it, and then, you know, have something nice at the end of the day to drive home, the Maverick wasn't going to be the truck. I'm just so used to driving trucks where I just beat the living hell out of them, and I took so much care of that little Maverick with the paint and everything like that, and doing the lift and whatnot, that I didn't even want to take it off-roading. That was the whole point of doing the lift, was to actually start taking it out on trails, and I never did that because I was worried about zebra striping it. But with that being said, let's get to the pros and cons of lifting your Ford Maverick.
If you made it this far into the video, don't forget to hit that like button. It'll definitely help us out. At least just give this video a like. We want this video to get out there for anyone who wants to lift their Maverick and want to know the pros and cons. So now, I'm always going to start off with the negative side of things. Starting off with number 1. Your CV axles. I honestly didn't have any issues with my axles within the 15,000 miles I drove the Ford Maverick. Now granted, I didn't really take it on any aggressive trails. It pretty much just did dirt roads. Now I will say that a lot of people on the forums, especially on Facebook and the Maverick forum pages, have complained that their CV axle started going out. This is one major thing to consider when lifting your Ford Maverick. Depending when it comes to your warranty, that is actually at the discretion of the Ford dealership. Not every Ford dealership, according to some that I have even read online, are not willing to actually do warranty work. If they do take in your Ford Maverick, expect long wait times because the CV axles for these things are just really non-existent. It being based off of the escape frame, they actually don't share the same CV axle. So the Ford Maverick actually has a specific CV axle, therefore there is a long wait time. So a lot of people have downtimes quite a bit on their Ford Mavericks because of the CV axles. Number 2, your miles per gallon. Now, when I drove my Ford Maverick with my daily commute, I was getting about 32 miles to the gallon. However, when I did actually do the lift, it dropped down, and the best I've ever gotten was 28 miles to the gallon. So do expect a drop. Some people, depending how they drive, have seen as little as 22 miles to the gallon and as high as 30 miles to the gallon. I've actually never saw 30 miles a gallon ever, only if, I hit the reset button and I was going downhill. So that's one thing to really consider, that you will be spending more fuel, especially since you bought this truck to save money. Number 3, limited lift kits. When it came to the lift kits, I installed the Super Lift Kit on my Ford Maverick. Now essentially these are just spacers. There are kits out there that actually change your springs, your struts, and your rear springs with the spacers pretty much installed and integrated into those kits. This con may eventually go away, just as long as the Ford Maverick's out. More and more companies are going to come out with more complicated kits. Just looking at the market right now, more have come out since I've actually done this lift kit. The longer the Ford Maverick's out here in the market, the more lift kits we will see on the market. Number 4, and this is what I mentioned before in my experience, is grinding those pinch welds. Now, this is actually dependent on what size tires you put on your lift, and if you do go pretty big, like I did with my 31-inch tires, do expect to do grinding. I try to cut my welds in half and try not to completely take off the weld itself. Essentially, they use body glue or an adhesive to keep the two components together. I would be kind of skeptical, especially if you're doing it yourself, if you don't know what you're looking for. If you are grinding the pinch welds, this task is kind of involving, and to be fair, this may void your warranty. Even though when I kind of look through the warranty, this type of modification, unless the pinch welds start coming apart, that would definitely not be covered under your warranty. Number 5, modifying your splash guards. I only did the backside where the pinch welds were to actually give my clearance so I could turn left and right. However, I was going to cut the front, and when I started taking it apart, I did realize there was some sort of ECM or some kind of control module on the front driver's side of the splash guard. I would not cut the front. I was actually having this big plan of making my own splash guard to create the clearance I needed so I could turn my tires all the way to the left and all the way to the right. But I told myself that how much were my tires rubbing when I was turning the left to the right? I only really lost a quarter of a turn by not cutting my front splash guards. However, you do need to cut the rear splash guards in order to clear the pinch welds, or the rear of your tires when you're turning left and right will not clear. And this is also really dependent on what size of tire you put on there, so be very mindful of that. Number 6, your turning radius and drivability. Now, going off with the turning radius, I will say that having bigger tires on there does affect your turning radius. I lost 1/4 of a turn, especially not cutting those front splash guards. I did notice that my turning radius was a lot wider. However, the biggest thing when it comes to this little truck is the drivability. The drivability of the Ford Maverick just went from okay to almost horrendous. And what I mean by that, when I had the Ford Maverick for the first 25,000 miles, it just drove like a car. And what I mean by a car, I mean really a economy car. The suspension wasn't the greatest to begin with, but it wasn't the worst. And putting the lift kit on there really made it rough, to the point where when I drove from Washington State down to Southern California to visit family, I actually aired it down to like 25, almost 22, to gain more comfort, because driving down the roads, especially once you hit California, the truck was just all over the road. And with airing down your tires, well, guess what? That affected my gas mileage. And when I went from going about 26 on the highway on this road trip, I went down to like 23. If you made it this far into the video, why haven't you subscribed yet? This channel is pretty much everything automotive. Even though I don't have a Ford Maverick, that doesn't prevent me from talking about it, because one, my dad owns one, and my best buddy's fiance now owns one too. We are going to the 2024 SEMA show, and we will be posting videos of the 2024 SEMA show. Going to the pros, number 1. And honestly, I will say before continuing on with the pros, there isn't really that much, but let's get into it. Clearance. Well, clearance, yeah. You put on bigger tires and the lift kit itself, you are going to have a lot more clearance than you did stock height with your Ford Maverick. Number 2, more aggressive tires. Right now, stock, when it comes to the Ford Maverick, you are kind of limited and you are at the mercy of whatever's out on the market for the stock Ford Maverick wheels. But if you do put on a lift kit, it pretty much opens up more options for you. So if this is something that you are considering because, hey, I want to get XYZ tire, want to do XYZ lift in order to do X, Y, and Z, this is a great option, especially if you are trying to go with a particular tire. Number 3, more confidence on the trail if you're overlanding or off-roading. Some people, especially on the forums, have a lot more confidence in driving their Ford Mavericks off-road. And on top of that, there are a couple that started making overland rigs with lifted Ford Mavericks themselves. This is one of the major pros, especially with having more clearance, having a more aggressive tire tread on your Ford Maverick. Now, do mind that you are still at the mercy of the all-wheel drive system, or if you have an FX4, or even the Tremor packages. So don't expect that a lift kit is going to solve all your problems, especially if you don't know how to drive off-road. Number 4, and this is my last one, miles per gallon. With the Ford Maverick being lifted, it honestly looks more aggressive. The Ford Maverick looks pretty decent stock. However, I honestly fell in love with this truck when I went to SEMA. In 2021, I saw it lifted at the Ford booth and I was just like, you know what, this is actually a nice little truck. And I thought to myself, you know, after doing my research, finding out it's pretty much a lifted Ford Fusion, or, you know, a Ford Escape with a bed on it, I basically told myself, I kind of wanted this truck and I wanted to do it this style. And if you are wondering if I regret lifting it, no. Do I regret selling my Ford Maverick? Maybe. I'm also happy picking up my Chevrolet Square Body K20. And if you understand the pros and cons about lifting your Ford Maverick, I would say, yeah, lift your Ford Maverick. You'll be happy about it. You'll appreciate your Ford Maverick just a little bit more. So that's pretty much everything I have to say when it came to my experience, the cons, and the pros of lifting your Ford Maverick. I also want to hear if you guys want to lift your Ford Maverick, if you are skeptical about your Ford Maverick, or if this video changed your mind in not lifting your Ford Maverick. I just wanted to put this information out there. Modifying anything has its pros and cons. There are a lot more cons in lifting your Ford Maverick according to most people's experiences. If you are willing to take on the consequences of lifting your Ford Maverick, maybe the lift is right for you. But unfortunately, for a lot of people that I've talked to online and seen posts, it is a constant battle with CV axles. My name's Nick, this is Mechanic Built, and I'll see you in the next one.
How come he doesn't get it like shorter tires? Or you just wanted to max it out?
I will max it out.
Tart ass.